Good day, all. Welcome to another edition of Outside the Margins with Chris and Ronnie. Ronnie's just trying to sort a microphone out. It's not playing the game for her. But we're joined by a couple of guests today.
Not at all. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you with an echo.
Sorry.
Got a couple of good guests tonight. We've got Freeman Jack from the UK and Ty Weed from the US. Welcome, gentlemen. Oh, good. We're having great fun here with some, technical difficulties.
I'm here, Chris. I'm sorry. I was just waiting for you to finish your introduction.
God bless you, my son. Welcome.
Perhaps from the UK.
We can ask the peanut
gallery. We'll call it England if you like.
Sorry?
We'll call it England if you like.
Pictland.
Pictland. Yeah, so we spoke the other day, and you mentioned that you'd been mind blown by a dude named Tom Campbell. And
oh yeah, did you go and have a look at his work?
Yeah, we did a few hours on him, several in fact, and yeah, he was great, man. We didn't disagree with hardly anything he had to say, so it was refreshing. A lot of the things we maybe had heard and said in a different way at different times, and quite a lot of it's probably attributed to him in the first place. But yeah, he blew some minds, especially on the digital reality stuff. That was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, I think it's possibly the most comprehensive description of reality without paradox. I mean, this is one of my issues, my arguments against the current scientific model, is that we, in order to move through the sciences, we have to accept and go beyond paradoxes. And in my mind, any model that contains a paradox must have to be the wrong bloody model. You can't have two mutually,
mutually.
Sorry, I was wondering if my puppies had turned the amplifier off again. Two mutually exclusive statements backing the same model. You can't build a model on two mutually exclusive statements. A standard scientific paradox, the Newtonian quantum model, having no bridge between them, means that both models must be false.
Yeah, there's a lot of that explained quite well, so that someone like myself can understand it and see the process that they have to go through to give it any credit.
Well, I mean, why are you saying there? Someone like myself, I mean, I don't know how much you know about the British education system, but in the up until quite recently, we had a two-tier secondary school exam system whereby you would have a lower level of certification called the CSE and a higher level of certification called the GCE, and then above that would be the A levels and the sixth form qualifications. I was a middle CSE grade student. I came through whatever it is, 10 years of compulsory education with barely two C's to rub together in an exam level that you need to fog a mirror in order to be able to pass.
Yeah, well, I did physics to what we had in New Zealand was called seventh form level. So that was like when I was last year of high school before you would go to university. So I understand a lot of it to that level, but a lot of it, if you're not studying it at a university level, that's the next step before you get to actually being like a practicing physicist.
Yeah, physicist. Yeah.
But
yeah, well, I mean,
yeah, go ahead, mate.
I'm sorry, I thought that was somebody else joining in there. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd saying that the education system only graded me as it did. I mean, partly was because I really couldn't be asked to lift a finger in school. It just seemed an entire waste of my mind and my time and my energy to indulge them in their pursuits. I knew, I mean, by the time I started secondary school, I'd already read Einstein. When Einstein wrote his theory of relativity, and released it as a scientific treatise. He also wrote a version of it for the general public.
Yeah.
And essentially I read that, the English translation of that, I think I was about 10 and a half, just short of 11 years old. And so, you know what I mean, entered into primary physics at secondary school, already understanding the kind of subatomic world.
That's pretty amazing, bro. And I must say that I remember one math period where we were doing some work and asked the teacher, what can this possibly be used for in the real world? Why are we learning it? And the only answer that he could come up with was, this will be useful if you're using it to aim a bomb at somebody.
Yeah.
And after that, it was
that would be quadratic equations, wouldn't it?
Quite
Isn't that
possibly.
the calculation of a parabola?
Yeah, something like that, bro. The 45.
Yeah, I never did get quadratic equations. I learned how to program my very first digital programmable calculator with this incredibly long instruction set. I can't remember how many instructions it was long. It must have been hundreds. And I had to key in each one individually and perfectly to get it to do it. But I managed to program my pocket calculator to run quadratic functions. And of that I was duly proud. Although I had absolutely no idea at the time what a bloody quadratic function was.
But it was impressive.
I mean, this was the other thing as well. I mean, for you there, you had at least some explanation of what that was for. We were simply fed this as data points with no relevance in the real world whatsoever. And so any relevance that we were to draw from it, you know what I mean, you had to draw personally.
Yeah, well, I suppose it was a bit of a shock to the class as well as to the teacher that someone would actually ask a question about why or what,
Yeah.
instead of just blindly copying.
Yeah, no, I got into a lot of trouble at school with those sort of questions.
Yeah, I believe you would have, my son.
Yeah.
Hey, Ty, are you with us, bro?
Yes, I am.
Oh.
Welcome, man. Hey, meet Freeman Jack, Ty.
Now we have a tri-continental conversation going on.
Yes,
No, I'm here as well. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Hello, Ben, Ronny.
Cool. Yeah, I kind of lost my well, I didn't lose my sound. It's just I would have been a big echo for Chris. So yeah, I had to fix my headset up. So anyway, hi Freeman Jack and hi Ty.
Hello.
Hi Ty.
It's Ronnie. Yes. How you doing, Ronnie?
Good.
Hi, Ronnie. You'll have to excuse us on the Antipodean side of the world to yourselves that we're probably in the latter part of the day for ourselves. I know for me here it's just gone midnight, so
We're going to be silly.
don't expect too much highbrow conversation from me at this hour of the day. I don't think.
Oh, that's all right. That's cool. Freeman, you're speaking on Thomas Campbell today, and Ty, you're speaking on the Rh negative blood group. Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm quite happy with that. I mean, the Thomas Campbell really was a resonance with stuff that I was already looking into anyway. Just I suppose for the listeners' benefit, I'm a temporal lobe epileptic who hasn't followed the doctor's advice in any way, shape, or form, and have subsequently experienced things that the scientific model just simply couldn't explain, and the like of Tom Campbell's work, I think, goes some way to beginning to explain what these extraordinary sort of experiences are that we have, usually on our own, but occasionally collectively as well.
Yeah, I watched quite a bit with Chris yesterday, and pretty much found his overall discussion, whether it be from the quantum physics side to covering OBEs, consciousness. The diversity of the show was wow, right up my alley.
Yeah, precisely. He really does kind of condense out a wide variety of subjects into a field of logically worked through. I mean, his work is so well referenced as well. Almost every statement that he makes, he gives multiple references to.
Yeah, and also provides the PDF download on his site, bigtoe.com, so you can actually go through the screen, the screenshots in a PDF that he had up on the screen for his lectures, which aren't.
Well, I suppose firstly we should really outline to the listeners who we're actually talking about here. The chap that we're talking about here is Tom Campbell. He's an American physicist. He's actually a jobbing physicist. He works for corporations working on exactly the sort of things that we were just talking about there, trajectory. What is it? Statistics and probability is his main thing. But he's essentially a jobbing physicist. He's not a theoretical physicist. He's a workaday physicist. He's in his late 60s. He's had plenty of professorships. He comes with very, very grand credentials from all the very best universities, and essentially his big toe, as he calls it, his big theory of everything, is essentially a description of the universe, a model for the universe, which outlines the way that, considering the universe to be a digital, virtual, holographic hologram, literally computer-generated digital virtual hologram, and that we are walking around on that holodeck, appears to fit all of the fundamental physics that are all the observed fundamental physics, and he goes through them piece by piece and outlines how the fit of the model with the digital reality model and the fit of the model with the Newtonian, Einsteinian quantum mechanics model, that the fit is perfect with digital, where it is full of paradox in the Newtonian, Einsteinian quantum model.
Wow.
I find the paradox is quite interesting.
Did you say Joseph Thomas or Tom Campbell? I mean, not Thomas, but Campbell. Joseph Campbell.
Tom Campbell.
Tom
Who?
Campbell.
John?
Tom Campbell.
Oh. Okay.
And essentially, I mean, the best one for me, I suppose, to explain his theory would be the weak history, the beers in the fridge, and this will probably go down well with our Australian listeners because I'm sure they'll relate to this. He tells a tale where you leave for holiday, putting 3 beers in the fridge. You go away on holiday, you sun yourself in the resort. You drink your sangrias on the beach, you think about the beautiful women walking by, you buy it for 2 weeks, you don't cast a thought on your flat or the beers in your fridge. You return from holiday after a long flight with bad food and awful air conditioning in a hot, sweaty taxi. You arrive home through your door, you dump your bags in the hallway and think, I could really do with a beer. You go to the fridge, you open the door, there's no beer in the fridge. Now, in Tom Campbell's description of reality...
that is not a good situation to be in, by the way.
Not for an Australian. That would be bad. All right, but now what Tom Campbell says is that the reason for the beers not being in the fridge is entirely probabilistic. That when you open the door of the fridge, you actually created an observation point, and between you putting the beers in the fridge, or at least vaguely recalling putting the beers in the fridge, there's been a very weak history. So there's nothing to confirm or corroborate that reality in your reality. Okay? Now, he says that obviously the beer's in the fridge. You may have been very busy late night packing, running short on time, forgotten, drank them yourself.
Yeah, well, sometimes, you can't always rely on your memory.
Precisely, and also you've been having a chat coming in, feeding your cat and watering your plants. Maybe he drank them. Maybe there's a beer burglar on the loose, on the prowl in the area, breaking into people's houses and just stealing the beer out of the fridge. Yeah, but without any strong history, the probability curve over the 3 beers being in your fridge is very fuzzy. It's somewhere between 3 and none. Okay, in fact, if you only ever buy beer by the 6-pack, yeah, then the actual probability function has a peak. It's flat between 6 and infinity. It peaks, or it begins to rise at 6, and then it will probably, because when you buy a 6-pack, you normally drink the first 2 and then put the other 4 in the fridge or whatever, then there will be a probability peak over the 4 beers, part of reality, and then trailing off to 0. And what happens is when you open the fridge door, the probability curve collapses reality over the most probable state of those beers to be in. Now, if you take the holiday analogy again, only this time you take a photograph of the beers in your fridge just before you leave to go on holiday. Maybe you set up a webcam so you can monitor the beers, or at least the fridge door, while you're away to see if maybe there's any beer burglars have snuck in. Yeah. Now, when you return home from holiday, you've got a strong history. Yeah. You've created a set point in reality that has corroboration. Now, there's a pure delta peak over 3 beers. The probability of there being anything other than 3 beers in that fridge when you open the door is almost 0, especially if you've had, you know what I mean, if you've not had anyone in to feed your cat, you've just left them to die, the plants are all dead in the window, place is locked up like Fort Knox, yeah? Then there is only going to be 3 beers in the fridge, but it's nothing at all to do with the 3 beers having been there the whole time that you're away.
Yeah.
Digital reality doesn't bother to refresh the parts that we're not aware of.
And
I mean, in his model, we're not even creating reality outside of, behind our heads. We're only creating reality in front of us.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know what? This is something that we really must get a grip of. We create our own.
No, more specifically, we co-create.
Oh, well, yes. Yeah, I agree there.
I mean, apart from things where we are the only person who can observe it or who can know it, of those things we are capable of creating ourselves. Yeah, everything else we co-create.
We're both the creator and the observer. With the we experience. So we're the creator and the experiencer.
Precisely. I mean, what Tom Campbell says is that we're effectively the operating system, the computer, and the operator all at the same time. So we are the machinery for dealing with the data. We're also the consciousness sat at the keyboard, and we're also the data stream itself.
Yeah, because we discussed what about a blind person? Their reality is going to be a different thing than a fully sighted person. Same with the hearing or any of your other senses.
Well, I like to use skydivers as an example. Skydivers do not share my collective reality. It doesn't mean that I disbelieve in their experience, but I have no experience of anything that they're describing. I simply have to take their word for it. Now, this is a perfect example of collective experience, collective reality, but that is of a closed nature, wherein without having done this thing, you're not going to know what that experience is like. And so that experience falls outside of ordinary reality, ordinary collective reality, something that everybody has experienced. And that this is my feeling about the places that I go through epilepsy and through ethnogens, is that these are essentially reality. This is essentially reality that we're talking about here. And again, Tom Campbell goes on about this, that all reality, all versions of reality are real, because reality is simply the observer observing. So if your observed reality falls outside of the confines of the collective agreed reality, doesn't mean it's not real.
Yeah,
so if you see a flying saucer, that flying saucer is real, even if it's only real to you. If you see little green men, you know what I mean, or in my case, the gnomes, the gnomes in the pixie land, which I have visited frequently.
Well, can you go there for a second? Yeah, what is your reality?
This. I mean, bearing in mind, I came from a very rationalist fundament. I swallowed the current scientific model hook, line, and sinker. I would argue till I was blue in the face with anybody that came from anything other than a conventional mainstream scientific perspective, and I had the smarts. usually to be able to badger them down. Yeah, I could hold an argument, holding the standard scientific model as a rational argument, and usually argue my way past anybody trying to present anything else other than the conventional model.
Yeah,
but
because
you
had your backup.
I'd done my research. I'd read the books.
And your blinkers on as well, yeah.
And the blinkers well and truly on. And then I suppose through the years of like I say, the temporal lobe epilepsy giving me the most peculiar experiences through time and distance, and through my use of fairly large quantities of psychedelic drugs, both ethanogenic, basic plant-based ones and chemically-based ones, usually in ridiculous cocktails as well, because I was fearless. Terence McKenna says there's old psychonauts and bold psychonauts. Well, I should imagine that I come under the latter rather than the former, especially with my temporal lobe epilepsy, and doctors are telling me to avoid cigarettes and coffee, let alone LSD and vast quantities of amphetamines. But essentially I would push any envelope that I could find, and I found myself in places at times. It wasn't necessarily a repeatable experience. It wasn't necessarily something that was a drug experience, which is what I came initially. I felt that all of these were either just drug experiences or experiences like fantasy. And over the years, they hammered it home that these experiences were something completely other than the standard drug experience. The drug was merely a filter remover or a threshold point mover. I think because essentially we're all living on with all of this experience merely just beyond our event horizon. My friend loves to describe it as so everything within our perception is above the event horizon. Everything out of sight is below the event horizon. It doesn't mean it's not happening or not there. We're just not witness to it. Well, I believe that this whole world, the aliens, all of the monsters and the demons and the angels and the fantastic palaces and the other worlds are all there, and they're literally a fag paper's thickness away. But there's a threshold. There's filters. Essentially, if we were to dwell within this world of perception where we can perceive these things, we would appear to everybody else like madmen. And that possibly is what true madness is about, simply having removed the filters so effectively that you're now essentially living in the hyperverse. And for the multi-dimensional observer looking at somebody living in the hyperverse, they would appear to be completely insane. They would be babbling madmen. You wouldn't understand what they were talking about. You would have no point of reference to understand what they were trying to tell you if they were trying to explain anything to you.
You could read True Hallucination by Terence McKenna, where Dennis McKenna totals himself for 2 whole weeks. He knocks out his monoamine oxidate system and has a DMT trip for 2.5 weeks. Sorry,
my psychonaut son butting in there. Shut up.
Yeah, just relax and try not to give in to complete astonishment.
I mean, this is the thing as well, is that psychonautism doesn't necessarily require any outside agents. Psychonautism is simply the exploration of the mind as if it were an external landscape, and that anybody can do that sitting in an armchair at any time. Just simply go inside and wander about, rather than simply having experience happen to you. Then actively.
I always get the.
Can you go and turn that fucking thing? Excuse me, sorry, got a teenager in the kitchen playing hideous thrash metal at horrible loud volumes of tinny little speakers. I'm surprised your listeners can bear it. Right, sorry.
Yeah, I always find that at about 2.5 hours, I was like, have to get up and climb a mountain or go for a walk at least, and the extra good chemicals pumping through your body as it heats up and your system starts working. That's what
I think there may be something saying about the mountains. I think there may be something about the closeness to large bodies of metamorphic rock.
Yeah,
I think that this is possibly why all of the While all of the ancient monuments have been built out of the dolerites and the granites and all of the real dense quartzite metamorphic rocks, I think that they've possibly got some implication there in this kind of transformation, this multi-dimension, this sort of cross-dimensional reality.
Of course, the other option is dancing. That'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. In fact, there's one of the ones that I must do some more research in to find out the name, but apparently there's an African tribe. Can't beat that boy, will you? Sorry, just setting his brother on him. Be the puppies next. Sorry, what was I saying?
You were
Speaking
going
of beatings.
about the dancing. The dancing.
Oh yes, the African tribe that dance routinely. The young men of the tribe, the young shaman of the tribe, will dance this incredibly frantic kind of pogo, bouncing up and down dance, and they'll do it for 24 hours and more at a stretch, until one of the dancers falls into trance. And as soon as one of the dancers falls into trance, apparently they take a smear of the sweat from under their arm and touch it on the other dancers,
Really?
and they instantly trip into trance as well.
Wow, that's
And
amazing. That's
I would actually concur that even from the modern sort of dance craze, that I was working in the underground dance movement in the early days of rave over here. And those dances used to get bloody tribal. You would have seen no difference between the crowd doing what they were doing on some of those evenings and any, Aboriginal tribal dance, any American Indian tribal dance, any tribal dance that you could select from any, and you did not need to take drugs to experience
Is
a
that where the mushroom comes in?
I suppose, yeah, it would certainly have probably. I mean, for us, it used to. What I tended to find was at the end of a night, come sort of 4 or 5 a.m., you'd have the kind of elders of the tribe take the dance floor and lead the dance into a very different place, and then it would get very tribal, very tight. People would suddenly bond where there'd been competition throughout the evening. There would suddenly be a deep bonding and a real rhythmic connection between the people dancing. And suddenly you'll see the whole dance floor just bobbing up and down in absolute unison. And everybody can look into everybody else's eyes and know who that person is. Nobody will leave that dance floor as an individual that night.
That's coming up to a climax.
Pretty much, yeah. And then the sun coming up as well. You've got the huge electromagnetic. There's like an electromagnetic wash runs across the earth. It's about 4 megavolts, I think. It's a huge electrical potential. I mean, take all of the power power generation in your country, plug it all into one plug point, and you'll get roughly the kind of this sort of output. Every time the sun washes across the surface of the earth, every dawn and dusk, you get this 5 megavolt potential swap polarities. And there's something, you can feel that. That's why we all love the dawn. It's a huge rush. It's an electromagnetical effect. And this also ties in with these sacred sites being built with these essentially electromagnetic semiconductors. I mean, granite is a semiconductor. Most of the dolerites and things like that are essentially the same stuff as your mobile phone and your computer run on.
Yeah, with quartz in it, right?
Well, granite's much more complex than that. We've not just got the various quartz minerals with all of the various bariums and cobalts and metallic impurities in the quartz itself, but you also have pure crystals of uranium in granite. Granite is actually radioactive. It gives off radon gas. So it's actually electrically active as an object. So again, if you go into one of these, I've always been fascinated by these trilithon tombs where you have the 2 standing stones with the third one propped on top.
Right, yeah.
Well, essentially, by placing a heavy stone on the peaks, on the points of 2 large slabs of granite, you're creating what's called a piezoelectric crystal effect, which is the same. Do you know these clicky lighters? You know these things?
Yeah, exactly.
So that spark in there is 50,000 volts. That's being generated with the pressure of your fingers on a piece of quartz smaller than the head of a pin. and you're generating 50,000 volts with that piezoelectric crystal effect with every single click of your lighter. Now imagine what that is doing to Earth energies if you have a permanent piezoelectric crystal effect going on with a 10-ton slab of granite sitting on two 15-ton slabs of granite to a connection point of only a few millimetres. And then you add to that this wash of the solar electromagnetic potential difference, and then add to that all of the various celestial mechanics, things like solar storms and gamma bursts and all of this at times. I mean, I've heard reports of people going into some of the sacred sites around Britain, and just on walking into the tomb, they're seeing spirals appear in front of their eyes. They're seeing stars. They're seeing galaxies. And these are just ordinary people just from walking into the tomb. Yeah, they call it a tomb. I really shouldn't use... They're not fucking tombs. They're bloody stargates or portals.
They are portals, yeah, they are. And there's a line that goes across England that's a ley line that's like all of those sites are...
Yeah, the Michael and Mary line, yeah. I mean, they have all... there's one, I must publicise it because I know that everybody just fixates on bloody Stonehenge, but there's a place up in Derbyshire called Arbor Low, and it's essentially Stonehenge laid flat, but it's Stonehenge unreconstructed. It's still got its original barrow. It still stands in its original countryside. When you stand up on Arbor Low, you can see about 3 houses, and you've got like a 20-mile line of sight in all directions. The most incredible place. If anyone goes to any of my YouTube vids, you'll see a couple of images of that kicking about. I really must upload something about Arbor Low as it goes. But this place is... and the weird thing is, it's like Stonehenge, but it's laid flat. All the stones are flat on the ground. And I've been up there several times now looking at these bloody stones, and they don't look like they've ever been meant to be stood up. Or if they were stood up, that some almighty thing came and laid them flat, because they're all broken. If you can imagine Stonehenge that some giant has gone through and like a tantruming child has kicked.
Yeah.
There's no way.
That brings me to a thought that I just had from a book that I read by a Kiwi guy called Bruce Cathy, who discovered Stonehenge in Australia. That was very close to where they were doing the nuclear testing or atomic testing, probably in like the 50s or something, out in the desert in a place called Emu. And he's found a Stonehenge there as well. That's like, it's a bit smashed up as well, but a lot of it's still whole, but it's like it's a flat one.
Okay, have you seen Cole Monk's The Code?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, again, another incredible researcher. I mean, the Code is just... it's mind-blowing in its complexity and its possibility. Basically, he appears to have worked out that using the Great Pyramid at Giza as a 0 latitude instead of GMT, instead of the Greenwich Meridian.
Greenwich,
yeah. That then using all of the grid latitudes of all of the sacred sites all over the planet, using that as a prime mean, you come up with this incredible mathematical code from which you can read off any other sacred site on the planet. And not only that, but encoded in the actual sacred sites themselves is the keys to this geometrical mathematical language. And to the point where he will literally show you how to read any sacred site anywhere on the earth, just simply by applying logic and reason to why it had been built in a certain way. And the other thing that he comes up across is that it's all based on the imperial inch, the imperial foot, the royal mile, and a few other, essentially nearly all encoded in imperial and perfectly. I mean, to such a degree of perfection that, you know what I mean, most of the mathematical codices that are read out of somewhere like Stonehenge. Now, Stonehenge is a fairly random, roughly placed thing. When you actually get up there, there's a lot of kind of unevenness in the positioning of the stones and stuff where they've been replaced. But by taking things like average radiuses and average circumferences, this comes out to 99.99999% of this specific number. And we're seeing basically codified in all of these sacred sites a means of geometry that does away with the necessity of pi and phi and replaces them with a radian function. And so basically all of these sacred monuments are coded in this radian function. And once you can see that, you start seeing basically grid reference codes for other sacred sites encoded into every single sacred site with this incredible degree of fit, which would lead me to believe that this isn't actually something that anybody was intentionally doing. I mean, I don't know if it's even the same chap, but there was a New Zealand pilot, an airline pilot, retired airline pilot,
that's
who discovered the grid, the global grid.
Yeah, that's the same dude.
Well, somebody crammed a little dirty paperback in my hand about 25 years ago and said, Jack, this looks like it's something you'd be interested in. I couldn't make head or tail of it. It was that guy's first book.
Yeah.
Okay, from there I went on...
Harmonic 659 or 695 or something.
Sorry?
Had the name Harmonic.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
I think.
Well, essentially, from his work on a global grid, I started working on that myself and began to outline what appeared to be a pentagram across the British Isles. I subsequently found out that there's another one laid out in Norway. I'm not sure to the exact size of the British Isles one because I've never done the proper measurements. But the one in Norway is a 666 nautical mile circle with a pentagram with one horn exalted falling outside of the circle, and it's made out of churches, dragon churches at that. They've got serpents on the top and serpents in all the statuary and stuff. But this is the thing, this would lead one to believe that there's some kind of secret cult going around all the way through history, placing these things at these very specific... No, I personally think that what we're looking at here is the expression of fractal reality. That essentially, because of the fractal nature of reality, that what we're beginning to find is that with native peoples placing things on the ground because that's where they want them to be, that they want them to be there because that's part of the fractal nature. And this is even why we find this in the big cities. I mean, it could even be the explanation behind all of the Masonic symbols in Washington. They may have been completely accidental. Probably not, but you know what I mean. There's been a book out recently examining London on a geometrical basis with showing how all the monuments mark out this huge geometric grid. But then the author said that he then went further, and the further out that he went, this kind of mandala expressed itself out from the city of London, out through all of the suburbs and out through the sort of brownfield sites and then out into the surrounding areas. And when he actually got to the out of city puppies, the out of city parts, he was finding as many corroborations as points on this grid of natural sites and old trees and things like this that definitely were not man-made or man-placed, and yet they still fell with perfect alignment on this grid that kind of radiated out from the heart of the beast, the sort of city of London.
That's amazing, bro. Hey, we've just been informed that we've only got an hour today, so we better wind
let Ty in have a word in. I'll tell you what, I'll mute out for a minute. These puppies. No, absolutely. I'll mute out for a minute as soon as these puppies are growling, and just shout me if you want me to jump in.
Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome.
And thank you. Awesome. And I would love to have you back and we speak some more about all this, yeah?
I'd love to as well. I mean, I've got all different directions to go.
The iceberg.
I'll be listening in anyway. Shout me if you want me.
Good brother. Awesome. Ty, are you there?
Yes, I am here. All right, that was...
yeah, go on.
Go. Oh, well, if you wanted to introduce me, go ahead. Go ahead. It's all
Yeah,
good.
Ty. Wow, thank you for coming on the show, and also Freeman Jack. As I said before, but Ty, you're actually coming to speak about RH negative blood group, yeah?
Yes, I am. It's kind of hard where to start in on this. First of all, I wanted to say wonderful. I was on mute that whole time, but I was listening intently, and Freeman Jack gave a good rundown there about a lot of physical stuff in physics that I've also been looking into for years myself. I would love to get the chance to chat with him on the one-on-one on that one. But as far as the RH negative blood group goes, can you guys hear me fine?
Yeah, awesome.
Okay. Uh, as far as the RH negative blood group goes, I am a member, for one. I'll start off by saying that I'm O negative. And when I was in the service, I kind of found I was like 17 in the United States Marines. And that was the first time I had ever heard what kind of blood type I had. And they, kind of looked at me funny and was like, oh, you're the universal donor. And that's all I ever knew about it until about a year ago. And I've been digging into the research on it. But first off, it's kind of hard to know where to start on this one. But there appears to be two different species, at least, of human beings on the planet. Would you agree there, Ronnie? Ronnie's
Yes.
RH negative too.
Yeah, I'm a RH negative as well, and yeah, there's a distinction with a huge amount of traits to start with.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Oh man.